Whether you're picking and grinning or just grinning, grab a drink, pull up a seat. It's time for Roots Music Rambler. Turn it up. Okay, so I think I've made it very clear a number of times on this show that I have no discernible talent. And I will admit to my limited musical experiences as a musician, which is a far stretch from anything I would actually ever call myself. But what I want to know is, I know a little bit about your musical background, but tell me when you started playing instruments, what you started playing, and how long that all lasted.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh boy. Let's see. When I was like in, I don't know, maybe first or second grade, I took piano lessons and that lasted about 3 weeks. And my dad really wanted me to play piano and I just was not interested at the time. I mean, of course, now I'm like, shit, I should have just stuck with it, right? And in high school, I had my go with the recorder. And then oh geez, I was in my mid-20s, I think. I started taking guitar lessons, and I did that for a little bit, couple years, and then, like, I got married and stuff, and you know what happens then. And actually, I think I was already married when I don't remember. I was in my 20s, let's leave it at that. And then about oh geez, what was that? Maybe about 13 years ago, my now ex-husband surprised me and bought me a banjo.
Mhm.
And because he knew I always liked it and whatever. So he bought one for me and I started taking lessons and I did that. I stuck with that for a while. And then the pandemic and everything went to shit. So, and honestly, I haven't picked up my banjo since then. I think we talked about it on the show before, how it just pretty much killed any creativity that I had.
Yeah.
And then my son was goofing around with the banjo and popped the strings, and I just never got it restrung. So, yeah, it's a sad story. Why do you have to bring it up?
Well, I just thought I thought we talk about music and we ask those questions of other musicians, but I don't think we ever really dug into ourselves and kind of shared that, because I think we've been very open about the fact that neither one of us are musicians, neither one of us are songwriters necessarily, neither one of us are singers unless we get a few in us, right? And are at a karaoke bar, but we're just fans. And we do this show because we just love the music, we love the musicians, and we want to know more about them. Actually, not, I mean, coincidentally enough, our stories are generally parallel. I started taking piano lessons in the first grade with my first grade teacher. His name was Jerry Waddell, and he taught everybody who lived in Pikeville, Kentucky for the span of about 30 years how to play piano, who wanted piano lessons. And my piano lessons lasted like 2, 3 weeks, long enough for my mother to spend hundreds of dollars on Beethoven collection sheet music for me to learn from. And then I quit because I didn't have the attention span to do that, and I didn't want to practice. I did do one recital. I did one recital, and I played Hot Cross Buns. And I think if I were challenged with about sitting down at the piano for about 5 minutes, I could probably pick it out again. I think I can play that song still. My stepdad played
It's a banger.
yeah, my stepdad played guitar, and I would always pick up his guitar and just kind of play around with him, but I could never play anything. He taught me, CGD, so I learned a few chords, and I would just sit there and kind of strum, and I would pick out licks from certain songs, but I could never play any more than that. Never had any sort of lessons. The one thing, however, that I did do that was somewhat musician-like, when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I asked my mother for a drum set. And
Oh, yeah.
she got me like one of those rinky dink Sears catalog Bugs Bunny drum sets, that were just for a kid to beat on, and it didn't matter if you broke it, it wasn't very expensive. But my love of playing the drums evolved until I was probably in junior high, and I actually bought a full Tama drum set and would, put on my headphones and play the songs that I liked back then, and I would try to pick out learning how to play them. And I can actually keep a beat on a drum set. I'm not polished. I haven't played in forever, so it's not like I can suddenly sit down and Smells Like Teen Spirit and go crazy. But I can play the drums a little bit. I marched in one parade in the marching band. I kind of sort of was tangential to that. I wasn't in the band, but I hung out with band folks. And my friend Chris talked me into joining at one point because they needed someone else for the drum line for the Christmas parade one year. And I marched in one parade, and about 100 yards into it, I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is terrible. I hate this. This is awful.
Did you have, like, the big drum like you wore on your front?
Yep.
With your hands with the mallets?
Yep. I was the second largest bass drum in the line. And I mean, all I really had to do the whole parade was do, 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 do. It wasn't hard, but I didn't want to carry that damn thing for 2 miles of marching up and down streets in Pikeville, Kentucky. So probably and then when I turned 16, it was, well, you can keep playing the drums or you can sell them and get a car. And so I sold them and got a car. And
Yes.
that was the end of my musical career right there. That's as much as I've done. Now, I will take that back. Probably it's been 10 years ago now, almost. My mother bought me a cheap $150, mail order catalog bass guitar, because I wanted to learn how to play something. And so for a year or so, I sat around and picked around on this bass, and I learned how to play a few licks from a few songs. But again, nobody ever taught me anything. I was watching YouTube videos and stuff like that. So that's the extent of my musical talent and ability. I've written lyrics to songs before, but I'm not a great singer and I don't really play. So there you go. That's
Yeah, I have some songs, like just lyrics that I mean, I haven't done that in a couple decades though, but I still have them. Oh, there was that one time I played cowbell with Vandaliers on stage.
right. You've told us that story.
Does that count? Can I put that in my
You can put that in your, yeah, that's a good one. That's an entry on the resume. That's a good one. I like that. That's a good one.
Excellent.
I wrote a song recently, and there's no way in hell I'm gonna, sing it or anything like that, but maybe I'll recite the lyrics like a poem one day on the show. I wrote it about an ex-girlfriend. So
I think you shared it with me
I
while we weren't recording.
yeah,
Is that the same one?
yeah, it's the same one. I wrote that on vacation this past year, and I just felt like I needed to get some things out of my head on paper. And if I do that, I either do it in my little journal where I'm just like handwriting and it stays there forever, or I will write short stories and publish them on Medium on the internets. So if you're looking for some goofy ass stories, you can go find my Medium account. It's just under Jason Falls. But anyway, all right. Welcome to Roots Music Rambler. She's Frank.
He's Falls.
And we're rambling on through the stories behind the music we love.
Yes, and today on the show, we're chatting with a new favorite of ours, Gabe Lee. Jason and I both talked about Gabe on the show. He was my pick in the grinning not that long ago.
Yep.
I got to see Gabe Lee in January. He played a show at the law office in Yorkville, Illinois, and got to meet him afterward and chat for a bit. And then, Jason, you saw him more recently opening for American Aquarium. So, yeah, you are a fan now too, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. He was really engaging and really funny, and I'll probably there will probably be a reference when we're talking to him here in a bit. I was sitting out front waiting on the doors to open at Headliners here in Louisville, and I got there earlier than anybody else for some reason. I'm just habitually early. And the guy who was, kind of manning the door until it opened went inside and said, "You can sit in this chair if you want to just sit here." So I sat in this chair right by the ticket table, or where they, do the metal detector wands and shit. And people started lining up. And the first couple of people who came up there asked me, questions like I worked there because I was sitting down. I'm like, I'm in line too. I don't know anything. I'm just sitting here. Well, after there was probably about 20 or so people in line, and this lady walks up to me and she looks at me and kind of smiles and said, I'm Gabe Lee's wife. He's the opener. And I was like, well, congratulations. I'm just waiting in line to get in. What do you need from me? And she was like, oh, I thought you were security. I'm like, really? Me? Okay, fine. But
Oh my goodness.
so and then when the doors did open, there was probably about an hour before the show was going to start, and Gabe and his wife kind of come out from backstage to say hi to some friends or something. And she comes over and says, "Gabe, this is the security guard I told you about." And so she introduced me to him, and we had a good laugh about that. And then I talked to him about being on the show, and then fast forward to now, and here we are on the show. And
Here we are.
he was great. He told a really good story. I may try to get him to replicate the story,
Okay.
but when he was on stage opening for American Aquarium, he said something about referring to himself in context with his in-laws, referring to himself as the Asian John Prine.
Oh,
And I definitely feel like that is an appropriate description that he made of himself. His family is Taiwanese, I believe. And so he made a reference to himself as the Asian John Prine. He is from Tennessee, grew up in Tennessee, but his family is Taiwanese. And I definitely feel that that is an accurate description because he's got great songs, really good songwriting. When I saw him, it was just him and a guitar, and he was very John Prine esque. It was a really good show, and I was really impressed with him. And he's got a future.
most definitely, most definitely. And I love his story in a lot of ways. His story is very similar to other artists we've talked to on the show. And then of course there are some differences that really stand out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll touch on those when we talk with Gabe.
Yeah, as I mentioned, he's a second generation Taiwanese American. He grew up in Nashville, and that gives him a very unique perspective on the world, especially the world we're living in right now. So we'll dive into his roots, his influences, his thoughts on growing up in Music City, and a lot more.
Yeah, and also on the show, we'll do our normal picking the grinning segment, share our picks of whose music is making us grin. They might be new artists, might be old, but they sure will be good. And this kind of falls in line with, I guess, the picking the grinning. So before we kick it off, we should probably talk about the new Jason Isbell album that came out on March 7th. So as we're recording this, it's not even been a week since it was released. It's called Foxes in the Snow. And have you listened to it, Jason?
Unfortunately, I haven't because I pre-ordered it from the Jason Isbell website, and they
Hey.
mail those out the day that it hits stores. Karen has a copy of it because she went to the guest room records here in town and got a copy of it on the retail. I haven't gotten my shipment yet from the Jason Isbell store or wherever I ordered it from, but it's coming. I've
Okay.
certainly, Spotified and listened to a bunch of the songs, but I don't have my hands on it yet.
Oh, I got you.
So
So
I
you have heard some of the
I've
tracks.
listened to about half of it so far, and I mean, what do you think I'm gonna say? It's amazing. It's Jason Isbell. He's probably the preeminent songwriter of our era. It's just him and a guitar, very intimate songs compared to what you normally hear from him in the 400 unit. Karen and I are going to see him play these things live in Nashville in a new venue coming up in just a few weeks. So, yeah, the songs are great. I mean, "Bury Me" was the first single released from it. It was fantastic. I actually played it on WFPK the last time I was filling in for Michael Young. And,
Oh, okay.
it's Jason Isbell at his best. It's just really good, deep, emotional, just amazing songs.
I've I'm refraining here. I'm really holding back.
Well, why are you holding back? Tell us what you thought.
I don't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know very much in the minority. And I've had this discussion in person with, like, Tom and others, and I've had this discussion online, and I didn't care much for Weather Vanes also,
Okay.
and I'm starting to think that maybe I have outgrown Jason Isbell.
Mm.
I still love Southeastern and Something More Than Free, like, and his later records with the 400 unit, but these last 2 just haven't grabbed me, and, I don't disagree with you that he is, like, the songwriter of our era, but I think and especially this last record, it comes after his separation and divorce from Amanda Shires, and he's got a new girlfriend, so there are songs on there that very much give us the impression that they're about the divorce and Amanda. And then he's got these like goopy love songs that he wrote, I'm assuming for his new girlfriend. Somebody, I don't know if I read it or somebody said that he wrote the songs while spending time with her and watching her paint. I don't know how true that is. Somebody could have just been, pulling my leg, but even before I heard that, I was like, "Yeah." I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just I listened to the whole thing, and I don't know that I'll listen to it again.
Okay.
And I did the same thing with Weather Vanes. I haven't listened to it in more than a year.
Well, okay. There may be some truth to the notion that you've sort of outgrown Jason Isbell because I just everything he does these days I love. But now remember too, I'm a latecomer to Jason Isbell. I was not
Right.
into him until a couple of years ago. Of course, seeing him in the 400 unit live a couple times, it's hard not to just love everything they do. But
I do love the full band. I
yeah,
mean,
but his for some reason, his songwriting to me, and maybe this is partially because I'm from the South,
mhm.
it's like I describe it the same way I describe John Prine's music. It feels like my life. Like
Okay.
there's just a lot of parallels with the stories he tells and the inferences he makes, and some of the overtone, not as deep as Patterson Hood with the racial overtones and how
Mhm.
awkward it is to be from the South and be kind of left of center, if you will.
Right.
Isbell doesn't do that quite as much, but he tells stories that are hinting that way, and so it feels right to me. And so even when he comes, out with a song that's maybe a sappy love song, it's coming from a voice that seems very familiar. And I
Okay.
think that's why I really like most of what he does. There are some songs he does that I don't care for, sure. But
Right.
like Karen and I both, and we've just kind of agreed when we have the opportunity to go see Jason Isbell, we're going to go no matter what, no matter where, and no matter how many times we've just recently seen him. I think we've got him in Nashville coming up in a few weeks. I think we've got the 400 unit coming up with him in Indianapolis or Cincinnati, one of the two, here in the next few months. So I'm going to see him a couple more times this year, and I'm sure we'll add another one by the end of the year, probably just because we love him. So there you go.
Oh, well, I shall pass the baton on to you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a gatekeeper when it comes to Isbell. I mean, I have been listening to him longer than you have. Not as long as Tom,
Sure.
please, but I did get to see him several times in the before time and then since the pandemic and everything. And I mean, the live shows are fantastic. I've seen him solo, I've seen him with the 400 unit, and I will not take that away from him. And of course, I will never take away from his songwriting. Just this set of songs, this most recent release just doesn't speak to me.
Okay. Well, speaking of speaking to you, Karen has told me her opinion, but which set of teeth do you prefer?
Ha! Ha! The original.
Okay. All right. You and Karen are in the same boat. I see. I think I think the redone dental work makes him look a little bit more noble, but no, that's okay. I didn't have a problem with the old ones, but
Right. And I mean, I understand why he did it,
sure.
and I think it's helped his singing as well.
Mhm.
It wasn't just cosmetic, but I think we talked about it soon after he had the dental work done and he was sharing photos of it. I don't know where he had just come back from, but he was very tan and he was very thin. Like he had just I think it was right after the separation and he like had dropped a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So he's very tan, very thin, and then he's got these big bright buckers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he looks like a cheesy used car salesman.
Yeah.
And yeah,
The first time I saw him live was right after the teeth. And he had the tan. It was actually on Oscar night. And this was when, Children the Killers of the Flower Moon was nominated for a bunch of stuff.
that's right.
It was on Oscar night, and he comes out, it's in Evansville, Indiana. He comes out
Mhm.
and he's got the teeth and he's got the tan, and of course his hair is perfect. And he's got these like, I don't know, hipster jeans on. And I was like, what have I come to? This isn't who I thought I was gonna see. But then he starts singing and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I came to see. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he might have been done up for some sort of Oscar video thing, or I don't know. It doesn't matter, but
True.
he was great. I love him, and we recommend you at least go listen to the album on Spotify. If you like it, then go order it or whatever. Jason Isbell's new one is out, and it's there for the taking. So there you go.
Yeah, definitely listen to it. And, Jason, if you're listening, I mean, I still love you, man. I will just listen to your older stuff.
That's fine.
That's all.
Well, if we ever get him on the show, you just go ahead. You need to bite your lip and just play nice.
I can do that.
That's good. It's time for a refill. We're going to take a quick break here. Take a moment, if you will, listen to more from the awesome sponsors that make this show happen. When we come back, The one and only Mr. Gabe Lee joins us. Don't go away. This is Roots Music Rambler.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. Introducing the all-new, all-terrain Honda Passport Trail Sport, the most off-road capable Honda Passport Honda has ever dreamt up. The Passport features increased ground clearance, roof rails on all trims, and available specially developed all-terrain tires. And you'll stay comfortable with tri-zone climate control and available features like heated and ventilated front seats and a panoramic moonroof. Learn more at honda.com/passport.
18-wheeler, back road dealer, 100 different ways to ride. If you'd have seen what I seen, done what I done, you'd be looking for a place to hide. Even if I had a shiny silver dollar, every time I miss a promised land, I'd still be $2 shy at the back of the line, 'cause they ain't never gonna let me in. Oh Lordy, when my pride got the best of me, when my pride got the best of me, I was a stuck up, no good son of a gun until the good Lord set me free. Found a way to put it all together.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. That is the title track from Gabe Lee's 2020 album, Honky Tonk Hell. And today we're joined by the man himself, Mr. Gabe Lee. Great to see you again, Gabe. How are you, man?
Hello from Nashville, guys. Good to see you.
We are honored to have you on the show today. Francesca and I were both lucky enough to catch you at a live performance in the last couple of months, even luckier to have you join us. Let's dive into this Honky Tonk Hell, because you grew up in Nashville, as I understand it, and are, back living there again. Is Music City the Honky Tonk Hell you're talking about?
I think every day is a little different, Jason. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It's such a great time for music, but if once you've been here long enough, you become part of the grind and the hustle, and it's a make or break town. Like, you have to accept the challenges that come with being a musician, like, in your face in this town, because, like, so many people are doing similar things. So many people are chasing that same dream. And when I wrote that song, Honky Tonk Hell, I was being a little snarky, and I was kind of describing, especially in that last verse, describing, like, just the maybe the state of country music, maybe the state of Broadway, and how it's a lot of, bro bands, right? And you'll hear more 90s covers than you will actual country music sometimes when you go down Broadway these days. But, that being said, the song kind of jibes at that and describes Honky Tonk Hell as if it were a place, of fake, of, like, just fake intentions and lies, and not the truth behind what music should be. And it's all fun and games, because in the second half of that last verse, I'm in Honky Tonk Hell with everybody else. Like, I'm no better than anybody. I'm right there. I'm right there living with it, living and breathing it. Nashville's been my home now for 34 years. I was born and raised here. And it will always be home.
Very nice. And I can't think of anybody growing up in Nashville without hearing in my head Bobby Barrett Jr.'s song, Visit Me in Music City. And that was the first song I mean, that record is a couple decades old now, but that was the first time I ever heard, like, anybody, like, take a stab, or, take a jab, I should say, at the state of country music or music in general in Nashville. So when I heard Honky Tonk Hell, I was like, okay, all right, yeah, I get it, right? But really, what was it like growing up in Nashville? You have said before that so many artists come to Nashville from all over with nothing but a guitar and a dream, and yet you were there and you chose to leave for a bit and now you're back. So can you kind of walk us through that thought process, how it's impacted your music career?
Sure. Growing up in Nashville, there were so many families and parents of my friends growing up who were in the music business, songwriters, producers, publishers. And I had no idea what the scope of, how they influenced the music industry was. Back when I was a kid, I just understood that, Marshall's dad would go on the road for 4 weeks every couple months, and play guitar for some badass band, and then come home. And it definitely it was just part of, I guess I call it the lifeblood of growing up in Nashville. Nashville's a really quiet town. When I was coming up, I mean, like it was kind of hard to get into trouble. There wasn't there wasn't like there was there was a great music scene, but being a kid in Nashville, like A, you don't know, all you care about is like hanging out with your friends. B, you don't have the money to go check out this amazing music scene. So, there was very much the DIY, like growing up playing in garage bands and stuff like that, playing in church bands, playing in high school bands. So the music was definitely always there. But, I think coming up once we got into high school and kind of graduated and became young adults, like a lot of those friends whose parents were in the music business, like the last thing they wanted was for their kid to end up back in the music business. Like very few of those kids I grew up with ended up following in their parents' footsteps in the industry at all. Probably because their parents knew better and said, "Hey, if you have anything else that you're talented or would like to chase, I would recommend doing that." I think one of the only few ones I can think of right now is Marcus Hammond, who wrote "God Bless the Broken Road." His son Levi sings and plays. Tanya Tucker's daughter sings and plays. But how can you not if you're Tanya Tucker's daughter? Um, and John Pride's kids, who I went to high school with, they're involved in the music one way or another. So, but generally, yeah, a lot of folks who grew up with music, natural music parents, most likely didn't end up chasing that same thing. And I only happened to kind of continue doing that because I realized when I dropped out of music school that I still loved the music and I still wanted to be a student of music, just not through the lens of being a classical concert pianist. So I kept writing songs, and then when I moved back to town from college, the first thing I did was get a bartending job and keep playing. So, what Nashville affords, today is the same, I think, as it used to. There's very few places you can come to Nashville with a song and it change your life or it provide you direction. That's one thing in this town that I hope never changes.
So you mentioned, going to school to be a classical pianist, I think. Where did what was the main cause of that turn to say, I want to walk away from this, which I've been dedicating probably a great deal of my life to for many, many years. And now I'm going to turn around and play a different instrument. I'm going to write music. I'm going to, be a lyricist and a singer. What was the trigger that made you change that direction?
Because I was no good at classical piano, Jason. That was that was never gonna work out.
I wasn't trying to tee you up for self depreciation there, man. But okay.
I grew up playing in some pretty intense pre-college piano programs. And I accredit so much of like my love for songwriting and composition and just theory, right? Music theory to the keyboard and kind of being shackled to it for a long time because my mom was a pianist and she was the piano teacher. She played for the church. And whenever I'd have a lesson or a recital, right, I'd go play my lesson or recital and my professor would be there. And then I'd come home with, Professor Mom. And she'd be watching my every move when it came to the piano too. So I think I was brought up for a love with a love for music that grew beyond classical piano. Plus, it's just hard as hell, man. Like it was a very specific, demanding kind of major to be in, as far as like just practice time you got to put in. Very competitive, and I wasn't honestly wasn't cut out for it. At a certain age, I was, and then after that, I just didn't have the appetite that you needed. I think one other big thing too that spurred the decision to move on from music school was I had a great music history teacher in Nashville named Don Cusick at Belmont, and Don's like just a Nashville historian. And the first day of class at Belmont, I mean, Belmont University in Nashville, a lot of great classical players, and they have a great commercial music program. So if you want to learn to be like a studio guitarist, that's your way to go. A lot of great songwriting programs, and then predominantly everybody there is in music business, right? Whatever that means, music business. So that's one of the things I was doing. I was double majoring. I was going to be going to be a music businessman, and then a piano player. And the first day of music history class, Professor Don Cusick, he's just like, "Look, guys, like it's 2009, right?" And he's like, "Look, I can't tell you the future of music, like because over the last few years, things have changed so much that." The things that I'm teaching you, I don't know how applicable they're going to be. He's like, applicable they're going to be. He's like, I can teach you all about radio and record labels and how music like performative music and publishing and all that started back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. He's like, but like the game is changing, right? He was seeing YouTube come around. This was before Spotify was even really a thing. I think there was Apple Music maybe. And so he warned us. He warned us, and he said, "Look, what you learned today may not even be applicable by the time you graduate. If you want to be in this business, go get a job right now. Like go get your your coffee errand boy intern gig out of the way right now. Just go do it, so that people because this whole business is about knowing people." And that hit home for me, and it jived with what I was kind of feeling already, like needing to get out of the music education program. So yeah, I chased a girl up to Indiana and had a Big Ten college experience and was a journalism student and got away from it before I came back to it.
So did you go to IU?
That's right. In Bloomington, Indiana. Where'd you go?
Yeah, I went to Michigan State.
Oh, good. I thought you were about to say Purdue for a second, and I was gonna be
Oh,
yeah, that
no.
would have been terrible for this whole interview.
Oh, no.
I can handle
No,
I can
guess.
handle Sparty.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, great. So getting back to your studies, now you study journalism and literature, yes?
Yeah.
Both those disciplines very word centric. So how did your studies inform your songwriting, or did it?
Yeah, I think just being literature nut, like just what are you inspired by? Like, so I think if you have to be, if you're a good musician, I think you need good influences musically, and the same for almost anything. Honestly, if you have a craft, like you need a good mentor or a good teacher, something to learn from. But being someone who used to read, just being someone whose books used to be his friends, right? Like that, that it became the English student in me. That became the kid who loved a story. And then when I found out that I could just like read books through college and write essays about how they made me feel, and teachers thought I had a good perspective on it, that was just the route I took. Whether or not that degree could get me a job at any specific corporation these days, probably not. I think the most informative thing about that education was like was understanding perspective, was being open to who's telling the story and where the story is coming from. Yeah, having an open perspective to what the crux of a story, what the message is, who's writing it and why. So that definitely informs my songwriting today. I wouldn't say I analyze my songs anywhere near as much as like when I was, say analyzing a text for a seminar or anything like that. But understanding that like good language comes from digesting other good language has always been big for me. So there's like a few short stories, there's a few collection of short stories and Southern folklore novels that I go back to, like biblically. I'll go back to them and read them here and there just to get a kick in the pants, like just to remind myself like what great language can be. And it's the same for listening to music. Yeah, like when like listen to John Prine or Jason Isbell or Paul Simon, like all these amazing folks to rely on for inspiration.
What you described about college, like going to school and just reading books and then writing about it. That's how I got through college too.
Yeah.
I'm now a lit teacher. So I totally identify and relate to everything that you just said. And I love what you said about
Digesting good language.
their
Yeah.
language.
Yes.
Okay.
So that you can to not to regurgitate, but like once you've been exposed to that, then you know that it's out there, and it's a reminder that like not every country song has to be the same for repetitive motifs. Right. Yeah.
Well, we want to get a little bit deeper into your songwriting and whatnot in a minute, but I would like to step out, take a break so we can listen to more fantastic music from Gabe Lee. When we come back, we're going to get more into your roots and how it all led him to where you are today. But as we go to break, let's listen to Rusty from the album The Hometown Kid. Don't go away. This is Roots Music Rambler.
All the roads round here will get you where you're going. All the roads round here will slow you down someday. when you're grown up on the winding streets of Nashville. Yeah, you're bound by blood to know them all by name. I left that town as soon as time would let me. I drove as far as luck would have me drive. I once spent a summer hiding out in Bristol. Over 20 years ago, I made you cry. Oh, but it's all gone now.
What if an appliance emergency didn't have to be? If your appliances suddenly decided they were done, don't stress. Best Buy has you covered with a wide variety of major appliances from trusted brands, in stock and available now. So you don't have to worry about laundry piling up, refilling the fridge, or that big dinner party you're hosting. Because Best Buy has the knowledge and expertise to get you the right appliance for your home. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
It's cold in Mississippi, longest day of the year. The geese cry in the wind as I wade into the delta, a shotgun in my hand, knowing I'll never see you again. Her cancer gave no warning, dug its roots into her ground, wild as the kudzu on the highways of the South. Barely time to dream of better days to get her by. She was gone in the blink of an eye. Time to time we all lose something, but it ain't worth nothing to me. Like this, all broken. Lord, if you can hear me, I swear to leave you alone. Please pick up the phone. I want you to know you can take me when she goes. Marigold.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. That's Marigold from Gabe Lee off his 2023 album, Drink the River. Just an awesome poetic sort of examination of love and loss, things we can all relate to on some level. The fact that the story behind the song is based on real people, I think, makes it cut a lot more deeply. Typically, Gabe, where does your songwriting inspiration come from? What's your creative process like?
Lately, it's been from the driver's seat of my truck. I mean, like when I saw you guys last, Jason and Francesca, and at Headliners, I was on the tail end of a like 10-day run with American Aquarium where they played every single night from the last Thursday all the way to the following Sunday or whatever it was. And we were trucking from Gainesville, Florida, all the way up to coast, down up the Gulf Shores to Lake Charles, and then back through the southeast, and then snaking back to Kentucky. So much of my time, my solitary time, is behind the wheel of a car. And lately, I've gotten pretty good at focusing on a song idea, the bare bones of a song idea, and fleshing it out while I'm driving, just in silence. When I first started touring full time 3 years ago, I was worried because I was on the road constantly and everything that comes with that, and just kind of indulging in being a traveler, but also like being exhausted and learning the ropes of the game. And I had very little time or even any inclination to write when I was traveling. You get to the hotel room or you get to the green room and you're just exhausted from the drive of the night before. But now I've noticed in the last year or so, I really do enjoy sitting back in the car, kind of being on autopilot. And just like when you're chasing the interstate, when you're just like plowing down the interstate like it's kind of become like a screensaver for me. Like it's like a good way to just imagine myself anywhere else, just like writing the song in my head. And I've gotten better and better at it. I think every songwriter has to figure out how to write while they're traveling. That's just part of the game. And I write a lot from the road. I think generally it's usually it's it doesn't have to be a melody or a lyric first. It could be whatever. But I think one other big ingredient is time. I am not concerned with writing a song in any span of time. It could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year. So that is a little different from what Nashville published songwriters are working with. They have a quota they have to meet. They're popping out songs. Having the freedom to live with these songs, let them cook, as I like to say, is is awesome.
Time is a luxury.
Mhm.
Yes. And like many of our guests, some of your earliest musical experiences were courtesy of the church. And we certainly have picked up on such influence in some of your songs. Many have compared your music, be it your singing or your songwriting, to John Prine, Jason Isbell, names that you've already mentioned. So lots of different sounds. How would you describe your music? And can it fit in any one box?
So it definitely shouldn't fit in any one box. I think we occasionally all have folks are that ask me, like what my claim is to the country music, genre, being the son of immigrants. Although I was born and raised in Nashville, I didn't grow up in the sticks. I didn't grow up, on a farm or a ranch somewhere. And amazingly, believe it or not, most country artists these days did not as well, right?
It's true.
um, but when I'm kind of posed with that question, was like, what are you doing? If there's a genre, it's I would say it's storytelling, right? So that's the only umbrella that I would adhere to above all, and I think the most important one because that does span genres. And looking down the line, like I don't simply want to be a folk, country, Americana, whatever it may be. I feel like there's growth I think there's growth coming down the line, change, and I'm going to be chasing down different sounds, but maybe still a similar message. Someone asked me earlier, like about how would I describe my shows to folks, like if they'd never seen me live, and I just say it's conversational and it's contemplative. So like you're gonna think, you're gonna be asking questions after some of these songs. I think good healthy questions. That's part of the message that I've tried to work out as an artist.
Very good, and I definitely would agree with that assessment. I wonder if you might humor me a bit, because as people found out in the intro to the show, I'm apparently officially your wife's bodyguard or security guard. And you were telling a story in Louisville about your wife, about meeting your future in-laws. Will
Yeah.
you take us through that story again? Because the way you described where
Yeah, yeah.
she's from made me almost piss myself. Because
Yeah, I
I
mean,
lived in Alabama for 5 years, so I know where you're talking about, but I'd love for you to tell that story.
well, am I allowed to is there gonna be any editing or bleeping of bad words on the
No,
show?
you j
Oh, no.
we
No, no.
we go F-bombs like crazy around here.
So the way I've been working the introduction of this particular song, right? I wrote this song called "The Wedding Song," which I wrote with Brian Elmquist from the band Alone Dolo. We wrote it because it was like the summer before I was gonna get married. I'd only been engaged a few months, and I was gonna be married by the end of the fall. So I had this short amount of time to where I was kind of like in this limbo of being a fiance, and I was asking my wife and I were asking ourselves like all these questions about how the wedding's gonna come together. And to kind of for that song to make sense, you have to kind of understand where she comes from and where I come from. So, like, my parents are immigrants from Taiwan, which is a little island in the Pacific. It's a beautiful place. They came to the States for school and then somehow ended up in Nashville, and that's why you see what you see here today. Then, Reagan is from Alabaster, Alabama, which, if you didn't know, means white as fuck. So it
Yep.
that's literally what it means. It means the whitest of white. And so, you know, so I- so I roll into, she's introducing me to her family for the first time, and I roll in with my guitar, and I always say that, like, being the youngest, right? Being Reagan being the youngest of 3 kids and being the only daughter, that, they always expected her to end up with, like, the next Alabama quarterback, right? Like, she was destined to be with Mr. All-American, and instead she brought home the Asian John Prine, which which I'm very proud to be. Uh, and slowly, little by little, it started out as kinda like, "You're not here to, like, take our daughter away, are you? Like, you're not some hippie that's gonna, like, come and ruin everything that we have down here, is it?" And it pretty quickly turned into, like, "Oh, we need to turn Gabe into a redneck as fast as possible." Like,
There
they
you
were
go.
they would take me hunting and invite me to all the shenanigans they're up to down there, and I've gotten more than a good stories from Reagan's family down in Alabama, just because of they live a different life down there, and it's beautiful and fun and absurd, but also but but still inspirational. I think one of the best lines that kind of sums it up in that song, the wedding song, which I intro this with, is I love your family, all Southern charm and profanity. And we've become this, like, Reagan and I have connected two groups of people that would never, like, get along if it wasn't for love, which is corny, but like it's the truth. Like, in this day and age, like, what what brings people together? Because we know what drives people apart.
Yeah.
But what's gonna bring people together? So it's it's a testament to, like, what can bring folks together. And Reagan, I know, in Nashville, sharing a love for music. Her brother is a singer, and she came out one night to a songwriter round, and we became buddies. So, maybe I am the only Asian kid in Alabaster, but I still feel like I'm part of a family when I'm down there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would
that's
imagine.
a nice.
I would imagine I don't know if you've seen or heard of this guy, but I would imagine you probably like or would like the comedy of Henry Cho. He has a
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
very similar story because I think his wife's from Arab, Alabama. So
That's right. I've heard that bit. I've heard that bit
yeah,
about Arab. Yeah. Um,
yeah, I've s-
Henry chose, and I think right now he's a new Opry member, one of the newer Opry
mhm,
members. Maybe like 2 years ago he was invited, and definitely look up to the guy. Yeah.
yeah. He's fun. He's funny too. Seen him live a couple times. That's good stuff.
That is a great story. I love it. White as fuck. Okay. So let's talk about your music. Walk us through your discography. So I've read that your albums kind of are representative of different places or different times or specific time and place in your life. So can you walk us through that? And, is there like a specific place or an event that led to the songs on those albums?
Sure. So I've been putting records out for since 2019. And the first one was called Farmland, and it was a very basic acoustic record. Myself, my dobro player, sometimes I'd play piano, and then we'd sing all the harmonies. And that was me being, yeah, like, a very young student of songwriting. So, like, you can hear vocally and delivery wise, you can hear me, trying to invoke some Dylan, Paul Simon, and a lot of John Prine. And that was me, like, learning how to be influenced by great music and regurgitate it myself somehow. And that was I think it was a impactful debut, because maybe it wasn't the best guitar playing or the best singing, but I think I was telling honest, true stories from the heart that other folks weren't telling. I think that was probably the most important thing about that record when I think back on it. And what we've done over the years, myself and this little record label I work with, Torres Music Group, like, if the like, that first record did just well enough for us to say, "I think we should put out a second one." And then same for the second and the third leading up to the fourth, just rolling one record into the other. And that led to 4 records being put out in, like, 5 years, so almost a record a year, which is a very fast clip. And, that I'll just say, I'm glad to, take a couple years off and just write and tour and not be on a release. cycle. The second record, Honky Tonk Hell, we were talking about it earlier. I mean, we put it out 5 years ago, I think tomorrow. So, right when pandemic was striking. And what ended up happening with that record is a lot of folks that sound from that record and the stories on that record resonate very strongly with people at that specific time. Like, because that's how I put records together. These songs came about at a specific time and they're very powerful to me in that moment. When I put them out, I think just like most records that tell stories, people connect to them for a specific time in their lives and forever remember them as that era, right? So when Honky Tonk Town came out during the COVID year, like people always say, I think they mean it as a compliment, but it's like, you know, whatever I think of your record, I think of COVID, I think of 2020 and how it just came out, right at the beginning of this terrible disaster, like, just boldly, this loud rock record after you put out a quiet singer-songwriter record. And I'm glad that it is impactful either way in that specific moment, because that was a time when people needed art. The third record, I tried to smooth things out a little bit with the rock band. I was trying to control the band, direct the band better in studio, be a better director and producer in the studio. And we came out with this. Some people have called it like Killer's Country, like some of those reverby guitar tones, kind of spacey. And that's a sound I want to go back to eventually. If some of these new songs I'm writing like really are a mix between like Prine and like Springsteen, like just a little more amped energy, then that is a sound I'm gonna borrow some tones from that Hometown Kid record. But yeah, I tried to smooth out the rock band for that record, and then eventually just in the fourth and most recent record ended up winding it back down, bluegrass instrumentation, getting my buddies Eamon McLaughlin and Jason Roller, who are both in the Opry House Band, to play mandolin, banjo, and fiddle on it to accompany my guitar playing. And we arrived at a great folk sound that was basically like a blanket for these really extremely real and visceral songs about people that I'd met in my past and my travels and my time as a bartender and some tough stories to tell, but what they were accompanied by these beautiful string arrangements, which kind of helped them be a little more palatable. So that was July of 23 was the last record, Drink the River. We wanted to let that record breathe. We wanted to give people time to access it. And then although the label has encouraged me to put out another record this year, I've taken a step back and I'm really just like trying to harvest the best stories and songs that I can before I go back in the studio and make an investment of time and resources.
So on that note, is that something that happens in 2025 or is it next year or does it depend?
I think it's going to be next year, Jason. I think it'll be at least next year, maybe the year after. And when I say this, like my record label head smacks his head against the wall. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
he's
of
like
course.
he's like if we're not spending money, we're not making money, right?
Right.
But and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But you know, I having garnered what I have from this business over the last 6 years, I have decided that it's not about keeping up with your contemporaries. It's not about trying to stay ahead of anybody because people are in this wide gap of successful musicians to people who just play at your little diners on weeknights in Nashville. Like I'm somewhere in that giant gap, and some of them are happy, some of them are sad. You could be extremely successful and still hate your life, and you could be the guy who just plays at Brown's Diner every night and be the happiest dude in the world. Like, it doesn't matter to me. My label head would be smacking his head against the wall, but like staying in touch with all the other great bands that are coming up in songwriters does not bother me one bit. I think it's about delivering the best message that I can for the type of songwriter I am and the most impactful stories that I can tell because like there's very few things I'm good at. And I think if I'm gonna write a story in a song and have someone connect to it, then I'm gonna take the time to make that story the best possible story before I release it. Not everyone can be Zach Bryan, record 20 voice memos and fire it into space.
That's a good point. So you just came off the Camo cruise. You just finished up a run with the American Aquarium, which was fantastic, of course. Nothing really coming from an album or studio perspective for another year or so. What's the tour schedule look like? You still going to be out there playing?
That's the hope. There's hope. Over the years we have discovered so many great singer-songwriter rooms, and these are I'm talking like 150 cap venues maybe. You know,
Yeah.
just good down to earth listening rooms where people are coming to fully take in a song and a message. Now they're amazingly, and I wouldn't have known this before I hit the road, but there are enough at these venues to get songwriters by here and there. You sell a couple records, you make a few $100 playing a show, you get to the next one. And even though you're not playing to thousands of people, you can still make a living doing this. So my hope is that I can continue to do that sustainably, which is the name of the game, I think. And if I can keep that up for another 2 years, and by the end of next year, have a collection of songs that I think are banging, that I think are worthy, and that I think call a lot of attention to the type of voice and message that I have, then I think I'll be ready to put out more music. But yeah, mostly it's gonna be road dogging, but and if not, I kid you not, like if not, like the parts of this year are scarce, right? Because they haven't filled in yet. And I may go back to bartending. We'll see. I was hoping I wouldn't have to, but there are two things I'm good at. One's writing songs and one's bartending. So I can make a mean old fashioned.
There you go.
Yes,
Well,
babe.
pour a couple now. What the hell?
Jason and I met because of bourbon.
There you
Right?
go.
Like we're big fans.
There you go.
Very true. And on that note, I loved your description of the listing rooms because I know you played the Monarch here in Louisville back in January. I know Mark Roberts had a lot of great things to say about you then. I was tied up that was my birthday weekend, so I was tied up and I couldn't make it. But I love those listening room like concepts like the Monarch that you just described for the reason you just described them, because people really want to get into a more intimate setting and really pay attention and take in the music and absorb it. And you can't quite do that in a headliners or a club or something that's too loud where there's too many people and it's standing room only. You got 40, 50 people sitting there spaced out, enjoying their own beverages that they brought with them and actually paying attention, phones down, all that kind of stuff. Those are fantastic venues. I'm glad you like them because I know, at least for me, we like them out here.
Yeah, the Monarch's a special spot.
Yeah.
Mark's done a great job. The sound and then the video that he captures, like the quality, it's excellent. I think I think another to that point to add on to piggyback on that is like how many A-list singer-songwriters are going to play rooms like that ever? Very, very few. That's a specific stage, specific level that that artists and songwriters will find themselves in, and I'm really grateful for it because I really do love the energy of a 60 to 100 cap room where folks are hanging on to every word, and it's good for the audience too because the last thing they want to do is the last thing anybody in a listening audience wants to do is go to a rowdy club, spend $40 on a ticket, barely never be able to get a drink at the bar, and not hear a word about the band. So
Yep. That's very true. Very true.
Absolutely. And you played when I saw you in January, you were at the law office in Yorkville, Illinois, which is another fantastic place. I mean, I've been seeing shows there for I don't even know how many years now, but that place, the whole experience was just incredible. And being that close and like you described that whole intimate setting, I think it really adds to the experience. So please come back.
I was texting Boyd today. We're coming back. Yeah, we're coming back in September.
Nice.
Okay.
Love it.
I'll put it on my calendar.
Another
Yes,
another
and
amazing
Boyd
spot.
yes, and Boyd is just so great. He's so like invested in the music and I'll go out there anytime. I just love it out there.
One anecdote about the law office, and boy, but that day was like 6 degrees or less
It was fucking
on like a
yeah.
Sunday afternoon, and there was football on. So like,
Wait, and wait, Jason, you'll appreciate this. Tom was wearing pants. My husband, who doesn't wear pants. He's from Wisconsin, so he was wearing pants and a wool coat.
He was actually
So
cold.
it was that cold.
Yeah.
It was that cold. So sorry, Gabe. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
It was.
I'm glad we all got to envision Tom in pants. Thanks.
I wouldn't have it any other way. No, it was a frigid day, and I'd heard such good things about the law office from like Jason Eady and all my other buddies who'd come through there. So I knew it was gonna be a great spot, but again, with the polar Arctic temperatures, I'm like, is anybody gonna show up? And we had a great show. Places like that are also so important because like you have folks like Boyd, folks like Mark at the Monarch who are keeping these like communities alive. Like it wouldn't happen without them. Just today when I was texting Boyd about returning to his venue, I I asked him if there were any radius clause issues because we were gonna come back through Chicago for like several days, and I'm like, hey, I might book something in the city or maybe up in Evanston, right? Space.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'll snag a couple gigs while I'm in the Chicago area because it's so massive
Fitzgerald.
that
Have you played
I've
Fitzgerald?
heard about Fitzgerald's too.
Oh,
So, just I asked him politely, like, do you have a radius clause issue if we were to go play somewhere else in the city? And his text response was amazing. It was, I would never impose such draconian measures. And I love that answer. He's like, why the, he's like, I would never do that back ass, dumbass shit, stopping a songwriter from coming through town just because we're 60 miles from the nearest venue, like,
right.
so I love that. And I hope to come back to, like I said, September, we're working on it.
Okay. I'm keeping my calendar open.
That's somebody who gives a shit about the artists, which is all.
Right. And that's why we love Boyd and the
Yeah.
law office for sure.
Cool.
So yeah, this has been awesome. Where can the listeners find you on their interwebs, Mr. Gabe Lee?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna start going by Mr. Gabe Lee everywhere I go. It's the Instagram handle. I think it's the Facebook one. Maybe I'll change my Spotify name to Mr. Gabe Lee. But yeah, we're online. Just Google Gabe Lee and follow us. Bands in Town. Bands in Town's a great way to keep up if you're a huge like concert head. Bands in Town's a great way to keep up with where artists are if they're coming through town. And then obviously the socials. I feel like I'm not an extremely entertaining. The most action I get on my socials is whenever I post like a picture of my dog or something, So maybe I can do more of
True
that.
for everybody.
Yeah.
That's standard fare, man. It's all
Nobody-
about babies and pets.
Nobody cares about you. They want to know about the fur babies.
That's true. Well, we will make sure there are links to all of those places where you can find Mr. Gabe Lee on them there interwebs. We'll post those in the show notes at rootsmusicrambler.com. Gabe, so much fun seeing you recently. Great shows, great songs. Honored to have you here, man. We can't wait for whatever's coming next, whenever it comes, and we'll be patient. But thanks for spending some time with us, man.
Hey, thanks for giving a shit, guys.
We definitely give a shit. We give too many shits, but that's okay too. All right, let's listen to one more Gabe Lee song as we go to break. Here's one of the aforementioned 2024 singles a long time ago with Riley Bourne and Luciana Costa to take us to break. Don't go away, folks. The Pick and the Grinning segment's coming up, and this is Roots Music Rambler.
Daddy went looking for a stretch of road. Could drive his whole life and never get home. Didn't want to leave, but he had to go. Didn't want to leave, but he had to go.
Mama was the daughter of a big rock star. She grew up singing in a honky-tonk bar. All she ever wanted was to break your heart. All she ever wanted was to break your heart.
Now that you've seen it, do you believe it? There's something shining up ahead. This old motor ain't turning over. These things just tend to run until they're dead. this old town has ever known. But that was a long, long time ago.
Empower! Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risks. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. How about that Gabe Lee, huh? You gotta go check him out. We've both seen him live. He's fantastic live. Great storyteller, great stories in his music. Very, very talented, and I'd be nothing but big things in the future for this kid. He's going somewhere. So get on the Gabe Lee bandwagon, folks. Good stuff.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. It's time for the Pick and the Grinning segment here on the big program. That's where Frank and I pick. We give you our picks for who's making us grin. It's kind of our way of recommending you some new music. It might be new music, might be old music, might be a song, might be an artist, might be a soundtrack, might be lots of different things. Might just be a song that we think is really cool, worth listening to. More often than not, it's an artist to go discover. And so I'll go first this time, Frank, because I know I throw you under the bus a lot. So my pick in the grinning this week is from a gentleman from East Tennessee. His name is Vaden Landers. And if any of you remember, we've talked a couple of times on this show about a young man by the name of Nate Myers, who he kind of plays a dobro type, a guitar, and old-timey bluesy kind of sound, but also kind of bluesy country. So think of an old guy sitting on about to fall down porch with a blue tick hound, and he's just picking on a dobro sounding guitar. So this is kind of what Vaden Landers sounds like and reminds me of. Really interesting throwback sound with new songs, new lyrics, new music. And kids probably, I don't know, he's late 20s or something like that. He sounds a little bit like Hank Sr. And, some of those sort of old time musicians. And I don't even remember how I discovered this guy. I think I was just listening to a list on Spotify or something like that. And I'm listening to the song like, hey, is that Nate Myers? And then I look and it's not. And I'm like, well, hell, who's that? And it's Vaden Landers. And so sometimes I like just sitting and listening to this like old time picking and grinning type music. And I prefer a little bit of a blues slant when I'm listening to that. And this Vaden Landers kid's good. I really like him a lot. He does a little yodeling. He does a little bluesy type, songs, little storytelling songs. And I think he sounds really good. He's out there. He's on the Spotifys and things like that. Of course, we'll put links in the show notes. But Vaden Landers is my pick this week because I just think he sounds cool and I like listening to his stuff. There you go.
All right. Is he related to Sadler Vaden?
I doubt it since it's first name, last name, but
I know.
who knows?
I had to go there.
They're both from the South, so goodness knows. I mean, family trees go in weird ways in the South.
So I've heard.
There you have it.
Okay.
What you got for us there, Frank?
So my pick this week is a band that is based in Chicago, and I know I've talked about them before, but I don't know that they've ever been my official pick in the grinning, and that is the legendary Waco Brothers. So they, like I said, are based in Chicago, and they play in town, like around the city a whole lot, but they also tour and play in other places. I think right now they're at South by Southwest in Austin, but they are like my favorite local band to see because they're always high energy. I mean, these guys are older than me, and they are so much energy and just so much fun. It's impossible to go to a Waco Brothers show and not just have the best time. They are playing, I'm going to Cubs opening day, and the Waco Brothers usually play in the morning because, Cubs opening day, it's like 1:00 in the afternoon. So the Waco Brothers are playing at like 10 a.m. And so I'm going to be there and I can't wait. So they're just so much fun. And John Langford is ridiculously talented. Not only is he a musician, songwriter, all of the above, he's also an exceptional visual artist. So I really am envious of, but also admire his talent. So if you have a chance to see the Waco Brothers live, I highly recommend it.
Awesome. I love it. You've mentioned them to me a few times, and I'm looking forward to one day getting to see those guys live because you've raved about them. So good stuff. Waco Brothers and Vaden Landers are our picks, our pick and the Grinnins this week. So we'll make sure there's links in the show notes for all that stuff. That's going to wrap us up here for this episode of the old Roots Music Rambler. It is a production of Falls and Partners, copyright 2025, editing and technical production by Resonate Recordings. Our theme music is Sheepskin and Beeswax by Gentacorum. Join us online at rootsmusicrambler.com and make sure you mash that subscribe or follow button so you remember to join us for the next hoedown and throwdown. She's Frank.
And he's Falls.
Whatever you do, kids, ramble on.